Hey, Margie here. Did you know there are fats that kill and there are fats that heal? And that fat is absolutely essential for our bones and overall health. Well, today we're going to take a deep dive into fats and really clear up so many of the misconceptions that many of us have. And our special guest is the legendary Udo Erasmus. And Udo is the co founder of Udo's Choice line, which can be found at Whole Foods and other health food stores worldwide. Udo designed the machinery for making oils with health in mind and pioneered flax oil, which is now a $1 billion industry. However, Udo walked a difficult path to become the man he is today. And today, he's an acclaimed speaker and author of many books, including the best selling Fats That Heal and Fats That Kill, which has sold over 250,000 copies. He teaches at events hosted by Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra and has keynoted an international brain health conference and has traveled to over 30 countries to conduct thousands of live presentations, media interviews, and staff trainings, impacting more than 25 million lives with his message on oils, health, peace, nature, and human nature. Udo has an extensive education in biochemistry, genetics, biology, nutrition, and a master's degree in counseling psychology. And today we really talk about fats, what fats are good for us, what fats we want to avoid, should we be cooking with fats, and how it impacts our bones. So there's so much phenomenal information in today's talk. You don't want to miss it. So stay tuned. Welcome, Udo Erasmus. I am really excited to have you here because you're a name in this industry and I've known about you for such a long time. So it's just so nice to meet in person. And, you know, way back in the 80s when fats were vilified and you were one of the first people to, come out with a book and do so much. And you've still been working since then. So I'm
Yeah.
really honored. Thank you just so much for being here today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, we're going to get started because this is a critical topic for a lot of the people listening who have osteoporosis and bone health issues because fat is just something that there's so much confusion on. And people, there are still people who believe it's the villain, and there are people who know how healthy it is. But again, we're going to try to clear this up today. So let's start about why health problems occur. Why oils and fats really make such a difference when it comes to nutrition. And this piece of the puzzle is often confused.
Well, the reason why the book is called Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill is because they're literally, unlike most parts of nutrition, they're literally two completely opposite stories that you have to know about fats. That there are fats that you absolutely have to have. So if you go on a no fat diet, it will kill you eventually if you stay on it long enough. And there are fats that cause you problems. So once you understand that there's two opposite stories, and you then figure out which are the fats that heal and make sure you bring them in, and you know which are the fats that kill and make sure you leave them out, then you're doing fats right.
Okay, well let's go with that. Because let's start with the negatives, because so many people have it wrong and they are attempting to do healthy things, but they don't realize that what they are doing may not be exactly the best. So why don't you talk about the dangers and what you see so common in our society that people are doing with fats and oils?
Yeah. Okay. The first fats that kill is anything you fry. Frying, the frying pan is the dumbest invention that we've ever come up with in 200,000 years of living on this planet. Frying, and I say to people, fried oils fry health, fried foods fry health. And the reason is because you're damaging molecules, you're changing molecules by heat, light, oxygen in the frying pan. You're changing them from natural to unnatural. And natural life knows how to work with. And the genetic program is made for natural. And when you turn natural into unnatural, your life and your genetic program don't have the capability for dealing with this stuff. That's why they're poisonous. And that's why I tell people, you have a frying pan, go get it, turn it upside down, hit yourself on the head with it really hard so that it's associated with pain, and then throw that stupid thing out.
Well, what about, because I know we don't want any of the oils, we don't want them to reach their, the point where the what's it called? Not the melting point, the point where
Smoke point?
the smoke point, right?
Yeah. Well,
But what,
if you turn oil into smoke, you've changed the chemistry, and smoke is toxic. Smoke is carcinogenic.
right.
There's a study that shows that cooks who spend 8 hours in front of a frying pan in restaurants, they have 4 times more cancer than people at home who only spend 2 hours in front of the frying.
Well, I have a question for you then. So, and I get asked this a lot. So if we're using higher, fats that don't have a much higher smoke point, and they're not boiling, and we're just keeping it on low heat, what do you say to that? Would that be acceptable in terms of
Well,
using a frying pan?
the smoke point is just a dumb measure, because you can do a lot of damage to an oil before it turns into smoke.
Oh,
So it's not like the damage starts when the oil smokes. That's when you're wrecking everything. So the smoke point is really a stupid measure.
hmm.
And people, I know that in marketing they say, oh well, if this has a high smoke point, or therefore you can use it for frying. That's not health advice. That's sales advice for the company.
So even on a low heat, it's not recommended.
Yeah. How is if the food changes color. Let's say you start with a vegetable, or it starts green, then it gets lighter, then it turns yellow, then it turns brown, then it turns black, and then it turns into smoke. That's the succession. Well, even when it turns color, you're already changing molecules.
Oh, okay. Because I get asked these questions all the time. So even,
cooking,
yeah.
So cooking until the oil industry began, which was about 120 years ago. Before that, cooking meant to prepare foods in hot water. So people used to boil their foods, not fry them. And frying was rare, and they used only hard fats like lard and things like that for frying. Even olive oil was never used for frying traditionally. They cooked in water, then they dumped the water, and then they added the oil, because oils enhance flavors and they improve the absorption of oil-soluble nutrients. So that's why oil is used in foods.
And I've done that too, where I just boil up, I have a wok and put water in and steam everything, and then you throw the oil on and it's delicious. But
Yeah.
what about if you use ghee, or if you're using those solid fats? Is that a time where maybe you could use the frying pan a little bit?
Well,
I'm just because I know people listening. I know my listeners, and they're going, "Oh my goodness!" So I'm just trying to clarify.
You're asking the Russian roulette question, because it's like, what can I get away with? That's really not the right question. The right question is, how do I have the healthiest, longest life and the most joy in living it? That's the better question. What can you get away with? If you use hard fats, they're not damaged as quickly as the liquid oils. But if you're turning the food yellow and then brown and then black, then you're changing molecules, and you're changing oil molecule or fat molecules, but particularly you're changing food molecules. And on the inside of the food, which is wet, you don't overheat the food, but on the outside it dries out and then it burns. And so if you're changing the color of the food, you're changing molecules. And you never change molecules into something better for health. You always change the molecules into something not as good for health.
Okay, so everybody listening, you understand now. The best thing to do is water saute or boil or steam it.
Yeah.
Use these delicious oils as.
Yeah, and then people say, well, what am I supposed to do with my steak? What we did when I was a kid, I'm going to be 80 in May. So I've been around for a while, right? So what we used to do when I was a kid, oils were not as popular as they are now. What we did is we cut the steak into cubes and threw it in the stew with the vegetables and the spices. And so the steak was boiled. So the meat was boiled, tasted great, wasn't damaged. If you fry the steak, The outside dries out and burns, but the inside is actually just steamed anyway. So most people, when they eat their meat, they're actually eating it steamed, except for the burnt part on the outside, because oil boils at a much higher temperature than water. So the water dries out and it evaporates on the outside, and then that's where the color changes begin.
What about just putting it in the oven? Use a little oil, you marinate the chicken in the oil, and then you toss it in the oven.
Well, it's the always the same issue. Is it turning yellow, brown, black? Again, when you bake bread, the inside is steamed because the dough is wet, but the outside dries out, and that's why the bread turns brown. And when the kids said, when the kids used to eat the inside of the bread and leave the crust, and then the parents told them, no, the crust is the best part. Actually, the kid was right and the parents were wrong. The crust is not the best part because it's the burnt part.
Oh, okay. So if it doesn't turn colors in the oven is a little bit better because then it's not getting.
Yeah. And if you keep the oven temperature at like 280 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's just above boiling is 212, but it's not high enough to burn, then you can make a bread that is wet on the inside, like breads are, but on the outside is dried but not burned. So you can actually bake without burning, but you have to keep the temperature low. If you're 300 degrees, it's already too high. 320, it becomes worse. And then from 320 up, the damage becomes exponential.
Wow. So you're really saying those kale chips and all those things that we bake in the oven.
Well, are they natural color? So
Yeah.
and you have to remember, I'm not telling you what your culture should be. I'm only talking about the effects on health.
Right.
I have to tell you the truth. That's my job.
Right. And you've done so much research and you've been working on this for so many years. That's why I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yeah. And then if you look at how it was in nature before we got civilized, that's always a good thing to do, right? Life's standard for food for every creature that eats was fresh, whole, raw, organic, local, in season, and either ripe or not ripe. So every creature eats like that except us and the animals we feed. So now we can't tell because we feed the dogs damaged food too. But in nature, it was everything was raw, and our system was made by life in nature for that. And then we thought we were smarter than nature, smarter than God, smarter than everybody. And then we started messing with things. And everything we've messed with has side effects, whether you're talking about side effects of drugs, which are unnatural molecules. No one has ever suffered from a pharmaceutical drug deficiency. Nobody has ever suffered from deficiency of burned food. Right? And I'm just trying to put it into a larger perspective. You understand? And when people get sick, there are people who put them on plant-based, whole food, raw diets, and they get exceptional results in reversing cardiovascular, degenerative disease, cancer and cardio, and all kinds of illnesses.
Yeah, and we're going to get to the really good fats too. But let's continue on this because so the frying pan's out. What about the way oils are stored? What other problems do you see in modern society?
So the second fat that kills is the oils that we use. Everything that's in plastic bottles, colorless, odorless, tasteless, on the shelf in the stores. All of those oils, except for extra virgin olive oil, or if it says on the label, unrefined. All of those oils have been treated first with Drano. You know what Drano is?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. So sodium hydroxide, you burn out when your sink clogs, right? You throw that stuff in and it burns through all of that stuff. Very, very corrosive base. They'd be treated with that. Then they'd be treated with a very corrosive acid called phosphoric acid. Then they're treated with bleaching clays because they want to get the color molecules out, because the color molecules absorb light and the light then damages the oil. And then when they do that, the oil goes rancid. Now it doesn't smell good. So they have to deodorize it. I used to call it de-stinkerize it. Right? Odorize it to get the rancid molecules out. And to do that, they have to heat it to frying temperature. So that oil has already been fried before you buy it. Right? Now, what happens when you do that? 0.5 to 1% of the oil molecules are damaged, and they're turned from something natural to something unnatural. And when I found that out, I called the Oil Chemist Society, the umbrella organization for the oil industry. And I said, I want to talk to a researcher. So they put him on the line, and I said to him, when you know you do damage by using these methods, why do you do that? And I'd been poisoned by pesticides. So I was like quite focused on health and getting better and not cutting corners, right? And so I said, why do you do it? He said, well, one of the reasons we do that is because when we heat the oil to frying temperature, we can boil off half of the pesticides in the oil. And I'm going, oh my God, I didn't even know there were pesticides in oil, right? But I'd been poisoned by them, so I was pretty sensitive. So I thought to myself, oh my God, 50% of the pesticides stay in the oil. And then I end up eating them. So I said to him, why don't you start with organically grown seeds? Then you don't have any pesticides in the oil. I think he had never heard that question before. He was silent for a long time. And I waited. And then he got really mad. He said, I don't know what your problem is. The oil is 99% good. It's only 1% damaged. And if you got 99% on an exam, you'd be damn happy, wouldn't you? So then I'm back. Now I back off and I said, well, maybe I'm overreacting. It's only 1%.
Wow.
So then we were told as kids in school, when in doubt, do the math, right? When in doubt, do the math. So I did the math. So I said, okay, if I have a tablespoon of an oil that is 1% damaged by the processing, how many actual damaged molecules am I going to have in that tablespoon? That's a nice practical thing, right? Because we use 2 to 4 tablespoons a day, generally speaking, but 1 tablespoon, what are we talking about? So guess how many damaged molecules are in a tablespoon of oil that is 1% damaged by the processing that industry uses to make it?
I would say probably thousands.
Okay. How many thousands?
Oh, okay. So I'm on the right track. Let's say 10,000.
Okay. 10,000. So I do this when I do talks, live talks. I always get a bunch of people to guess. And the guesses are never less than 1 billion times too low.
Wow.
Yours, you said 10,000. So you got 10,000 to keep. You're 10,000 to 10 million, to 10 billion, to 10 trillion, to 10 quadrillion, to 10 quintillion. And then you multiply it by 60 quintillion damaged molecules.
From one? Wow. That's unbelievable.
Because molecules are very, very small, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of molecules in a tablespoon. So then I say to people, listen, the fact, if you went to the airport and you're flying home for the holidays and you're about to get on the plane and somebody who has his facts straight and never always tells the truth, tells you that your chance of crashing and dying on your flight home was 1 billion times higher than you thought it was, would you get on the airplane? Now for you, it's not 1 billion, it's trillion. It's like 10 quadrillion times. No, 6 quadrillion times too low. So if your chance of crashing and dying on the flight was 6 quadrillion times higher than you thought it was, would you get on the plane?
Well, of course not. Yeah.
And then people start laughing, right? And I said,
Yeah.
I was in Ireland. I said, I would canoe home to Canada if that was the case. And my chance would not be good, of surviving a canoe from Ireland to Western Canada, right? But I would not get in the airplane. And the reason I phrase it that way is when you know how much you underestimate the damage done to those oils, that might give you cause to think, maybe I shouldn't use oils like this. Maybe I do really need oils made with health in mind. And of course, that's when I found out all of those figures and all those numbers and all the processing that's done, that's why oils were demonized. That's why they didn't like oils when I started in 1980. They liked carbs and they said, don't eat much oil. But it wasn't, the oil was not the problem. The damage done by processing was the problem. And nobody talked about that. And I'm talking about it because, yeah, this is something we've done to oils that by nature are okay. We've done that by our processing. And most of our diseases come from the processing, not from the foods. Comes from the damage done to foods by processing. Either we remove things that should be in there, or we put things in there that shouldn't be in there, or we make them harder to digest. And that's where most of our degenerative diseases come from.
So it's really sad. When did you start your company where you actually started manufacturing your own oils? Like how did that happen?
I got poisoned in 1980, and I started doing the research right after that, because I had background in biochemistry and genetics, so I understood how to read the papers, and the doctors couldn't help me. They had nothing for pesticide poisoning. So I thought, okay, I should be able to figure it out. If I do the opposite of what I did to get it, then I should be able to reverse it. And we started making flax oil in 1986.
Wow.
Flax oil because it has the most omega-3s in it, and it was the hardest oil to work with. And if we could make that, 99% of the population doesn't get enough omega-3s for optimum health. And when I found all of that out, oh my God, we could make them with health in mind. I was like, oh my God, we could help so many people. And that was so exciting for me. Oh my, there's something in human beings that helping feels good. You can make somebody, whether it's helping an old lady across the street, or maybe breaking tension when there's tension, or any little thing that you can do to make the quality of life better for people is so exciting and so fulfilling and so satisfying. And it's like, oh my God, we could help almost everybody, 99% of the population. And they're hard to work with. Nobody's doing this work. It's like, let's do it. I found something worth doing, because there was a lot of things I was doing. I was like, yeah.
Wow. On so many levels, that's resonating with me because, one of the things I do is teach a whole happiness program. And that's one of the tenets, when you can do things that benefit others, and just even when you can do these good things for the world, there's just nothing that elevates your own happiness. So that's so wonderful.
It was, and the whole thing, I didn't have any business background, and I was running a business on enthusiasm, because it was like, oh my God, we could help so many people. And I wasn't thinking about the money. I was thinking about, oh my God, I can't believe I get to do this. And then I have a doubt. It's like, well, maybe the industry did it, but they didn't get the result they wanted. So who am I to think that I can do better than a $60 billion industry? But I was like, no, they just their interest wasn't health. Their interest was shelf life.
It's so interesting also because you were passionate about it. You felt passionate and had a purpose. And so many people forget about life with that, forget about having passion and purpose. And sometimes you don't know how you're going to do it. And you just sort of follow the breadcrumbs and you just sort of, right? And so look what you've done. My gosh.
And exactly happened like that. Step by step, we can do it. I was sure I could get it done. And then we had to design the machinery, and then we had to set standards. We wouldn't work with people who wouldn't keep our oil refrigerated in their factory, because we work with oils. They refrigerate in the stores. You refrigerate them at home. They're refrigerated in the factory. right? This is like, who treats oil like that except us, right? And, uh, and yeah, it was like, and then we just made all kinds of business decisions yet based on a goal, which is, oh my God, if we do this right, if we make oils with health in mind, we can improve almost everybody's health.
Oh,
Then it was like, there should be a bottle of the oil in every fridge, because it's so important. And the body needs an oil change from damaged oils that make you sick and shorten your life to oils made with health in mind that support your health and to give you the longest, healthiest possible life.
I just love the story
Yeah.
because it's in every Whole Foods, your oil. So it has gone to, I
Well,
mean,
we're a long ways from a bottle in every fridge, but
yeah, yeah. But still, that's pretty impressive though, that, you
yeah.
go to the health food stores and the
And,
Whole Foods of the world and your
right.
oils are there, which is
Right.
quite a,
And nobody was doing it. And I just got there at the right time with the right questions, with the right concerns, so that I got focused on that just when it was established that omega 3s are essential, that your body can't make them, but you have to have them.
again, I could go into, I
Yeah.
just think it's such a great story that you just
So,
did it, you didn't know exactly how,
yeah.
you had this amazing idea,
What?
you knew it'd tell people. So
Yeah.
good for you.
When you know the why and the what, the how will find you.
I agree. That's sort of been my mission with the osteoporosis. And, I just recently did a summit and it really found me, it was just sort of an interesting thing. But anyway, okay. So what's really important for everybody and I want to really delve into this, is the omega-3, omega-6 ratio, because
Yeah.
research
Yeah.
has been done on osteoporosis and they've shown that the ratio really matters with bone density. People that are the higher omega-3 ratio to omega-6 actually had increased bone density in the hip. So
Mhm.
there's significant research on this. So why don't you talk about the omega-3 and omega-6 and how this can cause issues with our bones as well as all sorts of inflammatory conditions?
Okay. We still haven't done all the fats
Oh,
that
you want to
kill, but
spin there? Okay, finish
no,
the
no, no,
fats
no.
that
That's
kill.
okay. Let's do this and then we'll go back.
Okay, we'll get back. Okay.
Okay. So omega 6 and omega 3 are essential nutrients from fats, actually from oils. And essential has a very specific definition that was developed by researchers. It is a nutrient that your body cannot make from anything else that you eat, but you have to have it to live and be healthy. And therefore, that nutrient has to be brought in from outside because you can't make it inside, right? That's number one. Number two, it is so important that if you don't get enough, you cannot stay healthy and your health will begin to deteriorate and you will get deficiency symptoms because you're not getting enough. And those deficiency symptoms are degenerative in nature, which basically just means your body is falling apart gradually. And if you don't get enough long enough, you die. This is like something you cannot live without. You cannot be healthy without. These are the cornerstone of body construction. Life has to have those building blocks in order to do its job of making you a body that works. So that's number two. Number three is that if you're deteriorating because you're not getting enough of an essential nutrient, but before you die, because death by definition is not reversible, if before you die, you bring enough of it back into your diet and make sure enough lands in your body, then all of the symptoms that come from not getting enough are reversed because life knows how to make a body that works using a genetic program that life invented, provided we take responsibility here at our mouth to make sure that optimum amounts of all of the essential nutrients, of which there are 42, land in our body so life can do the job. And that definition applies to 18 minerals, 13 vitamins, 9 essential amino acids that come from proteins, and 2 essential fatty acids that come from oils. And those two are called omega 6 and omega 3. Omega 6 was known to be essential by 1929, and omega 3 was established as an essential nutrient the year after I got poisoned in 1981. So my timing to get to omega-3s was perfect, although I was not in charge of it, right? And then had my head buried in the journals and came across this. I was like, oh my God. And what did they say? They said, well, first of all, omega-3s are 5 times more sensitive to damage by light, oxygen, and heat than omega-6s are. So they're much harder to work with. 99% of the population doesn't get enough. Every cell needs them. And they're a nightmare to work with. And there are much fewer sources of omega-3s than omega-6s. So like, perfect. And so we worked with flax oil because flax oil is the richest source of omega-3s that is easily available to us. But it is a poorly balanced oil because it has so much omega-3 that you can become omega-6 deficient on flax oil. And I did. I got dry eyes, skipped heartbeats, arthritis like pain in finger joints, and thin papery skin. Those are classic omega-6 deficiency symptoms. And I fixed it by eating more omega-6s, sunflower seeds, which have lots of omega-6 and no omega-3. So the balance is important because they use the same mechanisms to be absorbed, and they have opposing functions in some of their functions. So if you don't get the ratio right, then it's hard to be healthy. And the ratio in most people in Western countries is anywhere between 10 times to 50 times more omega-6 than omega-3. And it should be at least equal, but we get the best results if we actually get people more omega-3 than omega-6. So we work with twice as much omega-3 as omega-6, and that's way different from 10 to 1 the other way. So we started with flax oil to bring the omega-3s back into the diet. And one of the features of omega-3s is that they inhibit the activity of the osteoclast cells that are the bone breakdown cells. They don't enhance the bone making cells, but they inhibit the bone breakdown cells. But essential fatty acids generally also transport minerals throughout the body. So there's at least 2 reasons why good oils help osteoporosis. And a third one is that they increase energy, especially the omega-3s. They're high energy molecules. They increase performance in athletes by 40 to 60% on average within a month of beginning to take a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day, mixed in food, intake spread out over the course of the day, of an oil blend that is twice as rich in omega-3 as omega-6. And anything that gives more energy to the cells allows the cells to do more work by 40 to 60%. So the bone construction cells, if they have 40 to 60% more energy, they're going to do their job better too. So,
Yeah,
the same thing with hormones, and then you have more energy, you're going to be active more. And if you're active more, then you're exercising your bones. So your bones will respond to that by becoming stronger, especially if you're doing weight-bearing exercises, because bones are built by stress. Right? You have to stress the bones. You got to give them more to carry. You got to pretend that you weigh 20 pounds more than you do. Your body will make you bones that will carry 20 pounds more than you are. And you do that by huffing stuff, carrying stuff around.
Yeah, no, we're big exercisers in this group.
No question about it. And I know there are people in their 80s that have completely changed their bones. In their 80s. You'd think everybody's going down when they're 80.
Yeah, no, that's my feeling as well. I'm a person that, okay, it's an opportunity, but look at this piece with the oil, reducing the activity of the osteoclast by having more, having more of the omega-3s. And then vitamin A, D, E, and K are all fat soluble, and they're all
Yep.
so important for our bones. So we
Yep.
need those fats, just like you
Yep.
said. So there's
Yes.
so many reasons this is such an important piece of everybody's diet. But could you just tell us the roles, in terms of the omega-3s? Because most people think, and the omega-6 in terms of breakdown, in terms of buildup. Do you want to just in a real simplified manner, just say the two different roles that the omega-3s play in the body versus the omega-6s?
Oh, well, they're both involved in every cell. And out of both, the body makes hormones in the cells that are short-term, short-lived hormones that regulate activities in every cell in the body. And out of omega-6, the body makes two different kinds. One that is healing and one that increases inflammation. And inflammation is important in healing. And the omega-3s only make healing hormones. They're called eicosanoids or prostaglandins, prostacyclins, thromboxanes, and leukotrienes. And they're collectively called eicosanoid hormones. But the body also makes anti-inflammatories out of omega-3s and antioxidants out of omega-3s and mood-enhancing molecules out of omega-3s and immune-enhancing molecules out of omega-3s. Because once you get the essential fatty acids, the body converts them into all kinds of other stuff. Brain omega-3s. There's so many things that are made out of essential fatty acids in the body. And it's an ongoing study because every week somebody finds out the function of something else. They oxidize very simply, and so they go through many oxidations. They turn into what's called oxylipins, and there's like dozens of those, and they all have function. They all have different functions in the body. It's really an exciting area. And honestly, more health problems come from damaged oils than any other part of nutrition, and more health benefits come from oils made with health in mind than any other part of nutrition. They're more important than the sugar issue. Sugar issues is a problem, but oils, when they're damaged, cause more problems than sugar does.
Wow. So these omega-3s are just so important. And why is it? Why is it the ratio? Because it's interesting. I was reading actually your book in terms of where a lot of people say, oh, way back, our ancestors had a 1-to-1, but you made a very good point that not all of those diets were 1-to-1
No,
omega-3 to omega-6
that's one
way
to
back.
one.
Yeah.
No, somebody came up with 1-to-1 as the historical ratio. But if you live in the north, you get more omega-3s than omega-6s. And you go south from there, you get more omega-6s than omega-3s. And you go south from there, you get more monounsaturates than omega-6 or omega-3. And you end up in the tropic and you end up saturated with tropical fats with more saturated. So it changes depending on where you live. The omega-3s are particularly high energy. Some of us call them the God molecule. Because if God is power and energy, then there's more energy in omega-3s than any other molecule. And because of that high energy, creatures that live in the North Country where it's like cold in winter, like fish that swim in cold water, they have to have oils that give them energy so that they can function even at really low temperatures, because they're cold-blooded, right? So they're going to be the same temperature. Like if you were as cold as a fish in the Arctic Ocean, you'd be completely paralyzed. But they have a lot of oils, and even at very low temperatures, those oils give them energy so they can escape enemies and get around and find their food and everything, right? So they're northern oils, and they're heating oils. They keep you warm in winter. They, whereas the saturated fats are cooling. So in the tropics where it's hot, it's too hot, but it's hotter. You get cooling oils. And so what we need to do changes although the brain, it doesn't matter whether you have a brain in the Arctic or a brain in the tropics. Half of the fat in the brain is omega-3s, and half of the fat is not that's not quite right. When you 60% of the brain is fat if you exclude the water in the brain.
So interesting. So, okay, so we can have your oil. We don't even have to have that much of it because it's so concentrated with omega 3s.
Yeah.
But the other issue is this ratio is outrageous. So, what are we doing that we're getting so much omega 6? And what would you recommend so that we can, besides
Well,
taking the good oil, what do we
yeah.
need? What are the real culprits here that we need
What
to
I
stop?
what I when I became omega-6 deficient on flax oil, I decided, instead of promoting flaxseed oil, which is unbalanced, which can make you omega-6 deficient. Like, okay, well, I'm trying to get people healthy. I can't do that with an oil that can actually work against it. And so I decided we need to make a blend that has the right ratio so that can't happen. Flax is 4 times richer in omega-3s. We made a blend that's twice as rich, because there is no traditional diet that's higher than that in omega-3s. And the highest is 2.5 to 1. We made it 2 to 1. And more of the healing comes from omega-3s than omega-6s, because hardly anybody is omega-6 deficient. But they get problems from the omega-6s because those are the oils that contain 60 quintillion damaged molecules in a tablespoon because of the processing. And so I say to people, you need to get off of those oils. You need to get on both omega-3s and 6s made with health in mind. The issue with omega-3s is people don't get enough in the first place. The problem with omega-6 is they get it with damage. And to fix that, you basically want both made with health in mind in the right ratio. And that's what we did with the blend.
Oh, that's fabulous. So what about a lot of people in this population take a lot of almonds and are, like a
Yeah.
lot, and have a lot of nuts, or, can't have dairy. So they have like tons of almond milk,
Yeah.
which is higher in omega-6.
Yeah. Well, if you eat the seeds and nuts that oils come from, almond will get you 20 in the oil, almond oil, 26% omega-6, no omega-3s. Peanuts, 20% omega-6, no omega-3s. Sunflower, 60% omega-6, no omega-3s. Grapeseed oil, 65% omega-6, no omega-3s. You go through safflower oil, 60 to 70% omega-6, no omega-3s. Sesame oil, 45% omega-6, no omega-3s, right? So most of the oils that we use are very low in omega-3s. Soybean, canola, walnut, and hemp seed oils have some omega-3s, but they have a lot more omega-6 than omega-3s. So if you take one oil, you're never going to get the ratio optimal. And that's why you have to mix and match. So we use flaxseed for omega-3 and sunflower and sesame for omega-6. And we blend them in a ratio that gets us a 2 to 1 ratio for omega-3s. And we have nine ingredients in the oil. Some are for antioxidants and some of the minor ingredients that are really helpful. And
Wow, that's fantastic. And basically it's in Whole Foods. I'll put the name.
Yeah.
Because you can buy them all over the place, your oil.
And it should be in glass, because when you put oil in plastic, it swells the plastic, and then things from plastic will drift into the oil. And you don't want plastic in your body, because that creates inflammation, because plastic doesn't belong in your body.
Yeah, it's interesting. People.
So the oil is in a brown glass bottle, in a box, in the fridge, in the supplement section, in the health food stores. And and the care that we take to do all of those things, it's all more difficult to work with. If we wanted to cut corners, we'd flip it into plastic, and we wouldn't put a shelf life on it. and we wouldn't keep it refrigerated. We just put in a little bit, so if it went rancid, you wouldn't notice. But we decided, no, we really want to help people, and so we're not going to cut any corners. Um, and that's also why the oil has a pretty good reputation.
Oh, it has an incredible reputation. And that's just so wonderful because unfortunately, so many of those processed oils are everywhere. And as you
Yep.
say, it's a real culprit in our health. And most people don't realize it. So it's such a wonderful thing that
Yeah.
you've done. So where didn't we could go on for hours, and you have courses that I'll give, you've done, so you have master classes, you have amazing things you created so that that's available to everybody. So I'll have links, all of that in the show notes. But what else is really important that we've left out? Because I know we
Well,
do any, what
let's
did we
get
leave out? Yeah.
let's go back to the fats that kill.
Okay, let's go.
The third fats that kill. So we started about fried, then the cooking oils. Now, third one is trans fatty acids. They used to be in margins and shortenings. They're not as much of a problem now because Walter Willett from the School of the Harvard School of Public Health blew the whistle on them, and so now they have to be put on labels. They're still in foods where labels are not required, like airplane cookies and stuff like that. But they double risk of heart attack. They interfere with immune function. They used to kill 30,000 Americans every year. And they just were twisted molecules from processing. And they were used in margarines and shortenings and shortening oils. And so that's the third killer fat. And the fourth one is the saturated fats, but except that's actually a misrepresentation, because saturated fats will make your platelets more sticky and make you more insulin sensitive. But omega-3s do the opposite. They make you more insulin sensitive and they make your platelets less sticky. So what we blame on saturated fats should be blamed on omega-3 deficiency. Because if you optimize your omega-3s, they protect you from what saturated fats will do when you don't have enough omega-3s.
Oh, isn't that a fascinating concept? Also,
Mhm.
I think the other concept that's interesting is the carb issue, correct?
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
when why don't you talk about that? Because a lot of people don't realize that there's,
I call carbs undeclared fats because when you eat more carbs than you burn, and we do, then your body has to turn the excess carbs into fat in your cells. So when most overweight comes from excess carbs, not from fats. The idea that eating fats make you fat, not true. Omega-3s actually increase metabolic rate, actually burn fats, actually turn on the genes for fat burning, turn on off the genes for fat production. Carbs do the opposite. And when we started at the height of the carb craze, like 1980, they had just put the carbs at the bottom of the food pyramid. That's what you should eat the most of. And the fats on the top, that's what you should eat the least of. And in 20 years of when that started in 1979, in 20 years, overweight went from 25 to 60% of the population in America. Nobody questioned the pyramid, the food pyramid. We did. So I made my own, and then they were changing the food pyramids and they sent people questions to answer. And I was, for some reason, I was deemed worthy of being asked questions, but they wouldn't ask the critical questions. So I got mad. I was in Japan. I said, I'm making my own food pyramid. And, and because anybody can make one, right? So what does my food pyramid look like? On the bottom, you got vegetables. And in fact, at the bottom, you got 10 times as much vegetable as fruit. Then you put protein on the second level. And the carbs, you limit. Because if you don't limit if you burn carbs, they're okay. But any carbs you don't burn turn into fat. Most overweight comes from carbs. Can also come from inflammation. And then that leads to water retention. Omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. You actually pee out the overweight. And we had people like lose 50 pounds in 6 weeks on 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 a diet that was straightened out and that had lots of omega-3s in them. And omega-3s increase metabolic rate, increase oxygen metabolism, give you more energy, warm you up more, and you actually burn fat. I call it the fat burning fire starter for burning fats. So carbs, and uh, I mean, there's so many carb sources, and the carb industry has loved the way that pyramid was made.
It's funny. So there's that pyramid. Then there was another one. I guess maybe My Plate it was called. And in the middle of this picture was margarine. And I'm like, no, no, trans fat. What are they doing?
Yeah.
I remember one of the pictures. I was like, oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
think that one, I don't remember exactly for where that came from, but you should not get politicians to make, to get people to eat right. You should
Yeah.
leave that to people who actually studied nutrition.
Anyway, so wait, I want to, let's continue. Is there any other ones we left out, or do we get all the ones that are killing you for the most
No,
part?
that's it. That's
Okay,
it.
good. And we
Those
talked
are-
about all the healthy, right? We talked about all the fats that are good.
There's only those
Okay.
two. There's only
Okay.
omega-3 and 6 that are essential. But they're the most sensitive of all of our essential nutrients. So they need the most care. And in practice, we give them the least care.
Do you ever recommend people get tested? Because you can test your omega-3/6 ratio. What's your thought on that?
Well, when doctors used to send me their tests, you can test plasma, you can test blood cells, and you can test fat tissues. And they can be they can all be different because your plasma tells you what you did today. Blood cells tell you what's been going on over the past 120 days. And your fat tissues change like over the course of 16 months or so. And so then they would send me this, they'd get the tests and then they wouldn't know how to interpret them. So I'm not that big on the tests. That what you need in your, I'm into food, right? So what you need in your food is a source of omega-3s and 6 that are not damaged by processing.
Got it.
Made with health in mind, that come from organically grown seeds, that are in glass. And if you take that, we measure optimum intake by how skin feels.
Oh, and how much do you recommend? What's your recommendation for everybody? So everybody listening.
Yeah,
what would you say?
ballpark tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight per day.
Okay. Got
And
it.
food spread out over the course of the day. And so it's 2 to 4 tablespoons for most people. This is not a supplement. This is food.
And you'll feel, what will your skin feel like? Just feel nice and soft?
Together, omega-3 and 6, if they're in the right ratio, they form a barrier in the skin against the loss of moisture, and your skin becomes soft, smooth, and velvety.
Okay.
And if your skin is dry, you need more oil. In winter, you need more because some of it's burnt for energy than in summer. So I use maybe 2 or 3 in summer, tablespoons, and I use about 4 in winter.
Oh, wow. Well, this is just
Yeah.
so helpful and so interesting because, as I said, so many people, it's just so important. So everybody listening, this is life changing, really, and it's not hard to do. That's the other beautiful thing about this. This is totally doable, and it's just a matter of changing some practices and adding this great oil to your diet.
And the best way to oil your skin is from within. The other part that's really fun to talk about, they're super important during pregnancy.
Mm.
When a woman is pregnant, she needs to maintain her brain and she needs to build a brain at the same time. And because most women don't get enough essential fatty acid, not enough omega-3s, the child will take them from her brain because nature says, kids the future, mom's the past. If I have to, I will sacrifice the past for the future. And so what that means is that each child gets less omega-3s than the previous child. Each child depletes the mother further. This is all from research. And And women get depression, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, collagen, and autoimmune diseases 2 to 15 times more frequently than men do. The researchers think that's because they don't have enough in their diet, so they get depleted, and the depletion of essential fatty acids sets them up for those problems. So they say women need to make sure they get a reliable source of both essential fatty acids in their diet. Of course, I add in the right ratio and made with health in mind, both for their own health and for the health of their children.
So the pregnant people who are listening, my husband's an OBGYN and still delivers babies. So this is, I'm going to
Yeah.
make sure. What do you recommend in terms of your oil? How much do you tell pregnant women to take?
Tablespoon per 50.
Same thing.
As their
Okay.
weight goes up in pregnancy,
Yeah.
tablespoon per 50. If they're breastfeeding, her and the kid's weight together, tablespoon per 50.
Got it.
When they go separate, tablespoon per 50. Right?
It's so interesting because most people think, oh, it's in the vitamin. You know, they always all the prenatal vitamins will say, oh, omega 3.
They you know what? They put only enough in there so they can put it on the label.
Wow.
Because if you put omega 3s in pills, it goes rancid. So then the pills taste bad and smell bad. So they have to put so little in that it doesn't make a difference.
Wow, this is fascinating.
It's
Wow.
completely not, you don't get essential fatty acids, which you require in pretty large quantities. Right? We're talking about like our recommended omega 3s from plants, the basic ones, is 7 to 20 grams. Right?
Interesting.
That's a lot. That's like
Yeah.
20 grams is 30 grams is an, let's see, 28 grams is an ounce. So it's a half an ounce. It's more than half an ounce, right? Whereas when we talk about some of the minerals, a gram, 125 micrograms for iodine. So the amounts are very small. So you can put those in pills. But when you try to make your major nutrients, proteins, fats, carbs, putting them in a pill is not enough. You need more
Wow.
of them.
This is just so fascinating. So we could go on and, we could, but the nice thing is you have all sorts of resources for people who really want to explore this. I think we went over, is there anything that we missed? Because before we end.
No. Well, there's lots.
Yeah, but there's nothing,
Yeah.
nothing that we won't eat that we really left out that you absolutely want to.
No, they improve hormone function at the cell receptor level, omega 3s, again. So that means as you get older and your hormones change, you get normal function for longer because they make the hormones that you've got because your production goes down, right? But you need less production if they work better, and omega 3s make them work better. So I mean, it goes on and on. There's not a system in the body, not a cell in the body that doesn't have a function for omega 3s, as well as omega 6s.
Yeah. And when would you say you would notice a difference? So let's say we start right now on your oil. Like, how long would it take till my skin feels different? When do you typically see notice?
For skin, 30 days, but some people notice. And for energy levels, we always say a month. Take a month. Take a tablespoon per 50 pounds of body weight mixed in food, spread out over the course of the day for a month, and pay attention to what you notice. There are people who notice the increase in energy within 2 or 3 hours, but not everybody does. Your brain works better. Your IQ can go up 3 to 9 points. That takes about 6 months. So some things are slower than others.
Wow. This is,
But
so everyone listening, you're going to have to let us know. You'll have to email me and or just, tell us
when
what
we
happened.
worked with the athletes, we took them, we put them on for 6 weeks and they got 40 to 60% increase in stamina and they recovered better and they healed quicker and they slept better. And their reflexes were sharper. Then at the end of 6 months, we took them off and watched their performance go down. Then we put them back on and watched it go up again.
Wow,
And
that's
then we took them off again. And after that, they wouldn't play anymore. They said,
wow.
I'm not going off this stuff."
Isn't that incredible? Well,
So,
yeah, I can't thank you enough. This has been, and there's, so I'll have links to all your classes and
yeah,
programs because there's really fascinating. And in my world of the happiness, where I believe that's so
yeah,
important, you've done, and we're not going to get into that now, but you've done a tremendous amount about peace and
yeah,
nature and how all of that also impacts. And you have
yeah.
classes on that as
We,
well. So
yeah, we can do another one on that topic.
yeah, we really
Happiness.
should.
We'll do one on happiness.
Let's do one because I love your whole program and how you've incorporated things into healing as well. So let's plan to do that. I would love that.
Okay, cool.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much for sharing all this very important information and really setting things straight for us so we
yeah,
understand. And it's not based on just, oh
yeah,
yeah, I heard this, I heard that, but at
yeah,
least we understand,
yeah.
and
Can
it's
I
all
tell
backed
you?
on science. Yeah.
Can I tell you? Thank you for sharing all this important information.
Oh, well, my pleasure. So
Right?
yes.
So this is your podcast, right?
Yes. Well, it's been a pleasure having you and so wonderful to
Yeah,
meet you. I've known your name for such a long time. So this has really been wonderful. So thank you so much for being here today.
yeah. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Udo Erasmus as much as I did. And now you have a better understanding of why it's so critical that we have those good oils and fats in our diet for our bones and overall health. All the links that Udo talked about will be in the show notes. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.